If you wake up even once to go pee in the middle of the night and you have sleep apnea, this episode is for you. Because when you have sleep apnea, about 70% of people have something known as nocturia, which is the fanciest medical way, Dr. House way, you could say you pee at night. And honestly, if it's one and above, that's not what you want. So that's why today's episode, we're going to talk about this huge epidemic in terms of nighttime peeing. And I'll say nighttime peeing because nocturia doesn't have the best ring to it. And this is critical because when you pee at night, it just adds to this downward spiral of bad sleep quality, which will then worsen sleep apnea, then more peeing at night, and then worse sleep quality, then worsening sleep apnea. Wake it just becomes this thing, and we have to break this cycle here so you get back to sleeping well and can even be shown as these well sleeping people in stock photo art here. So that's why today's episode, get it? Episode. And if you want to unsubscribe because of that joke, I don't blame you. I really don't. Yeah, don't blame you. So today we're going to talk about why this happens and how to combat it. That sounds very violent. How to address it, or rather. And of course, this is for educational purposes only. Consult with your healthcare provider. And one thing they may say to you is you should subscribe to this channel because one, there's a lot of lame jokes. And two, you want to stay up to date. And three, also help get the word out to others. So, what is going on? Why is there more pee and more urine when you have sleep apnea? So, there's three big P switches, the three P's of nighttime urination. I just like to have as many rhymes as possible here. So the first one is ADH hormone, which is known as antidiuretic hormone, which I just want to clear some confusion about this. So think of it like a double negative because antidiuretic, because anti is going to be like the opposite, and then diuretic is peeing. So anti-peeing is what this hormone is. So what that means is when you have low antidiuretic, I just call it anti-pee hormone. That's easier. When you have low anti-pee hormone, that's low, then you have more pee. All right. So it can be a little bit confusing. You can just think of it as this is the hormone that tells your body to not pee. And probably the best analogy that I like, because it was always something that tripped me up, 'cause it's like double negative. But think of it in the context of evolution. Would it be a good idea to go pee in the middle of the night if there's these like nocturnal predators out there, like a lion or a owl? And I don't think those two are in the same ecosystem, but nonetheless, you wouldn't want to do that. You become a target to yourself and like the other people around you. But if you did not pee at night, that would be highly advantageous. That'd be a good thing. That's why at night you want antidiuretic hormone to be high because then you're not going and peeing, you're not being attacked by lions. Or my cat will sometimes get up and he's somewhat of a lion and will cause a lot of mischief. So healthy ADH or anti-P is high at night so you don't go out there into the savannah peeing next to the lions. So high is the goal here. And the reason this gets disrupted, and this is going to be a diagram, very important paper. You can check it out if you want. So on this diagram, and just to make things extra confusing and extra scientific, ADH is also known as AVP. Just don't worry about it. It stands for arginine vasopressin, but they're the same thing. So when you see AVP on this diagram, that is also ADH. AVP equals ADH equals anti-P hormone. We want it to be high. Sorry for belaboring the point. It's just important. When you have sleep disturbances, remember that cycle I showed you, bad sleep will lead to lower anti-P. Thus, you're going out there and peeing in the savannah, or hopefully your toilet at least. No one likes a soiled savannah. So that will get decreased with all the repeated nervous system activation. And then the other thing, which a lot of people miss, is that ADH is also a circadian hormone. Kind of what I was hinting at here, of where we will want it to be high at night, and it almost doesn't really matter what it's like during the day. Obviously, not crazy low. You don't want to like have to live your life around a bathroom, but we want it higher at night. It's a circadian hormone. And in the brain, ADH is actually connected and very close to the same set of neurons that make melatonin at night. So if you're sleeping poorly, then you're also going to not be secreting as much ADH just because how it's linked up to melatonin. And if you're sleeping poorly, you have low melatonin. And then based on that connection, low ADH, right? Thing number two, and we'll talk about how to reverse and address each of these underlying issues. Number two, negative intrathoracic pressure, which sounds like a bad like grunge band, but I digress, is whenever you're having a increased respiratory effort at night. Kinda like when you stop breathing and then start breathing again. That's gonna be the highest amount of effort. When that happens, it is going to cause this big change in pressure in your abdomen, and negative pressure, think of it as like a vacuum of where if we zoom in here, I was always jealous of like Magic School Bus. You could like zoom in to these things. I guess this is the closest I've gotten to doing that. But with negative intrathoracic pressure, think of things getting pulled into or towards this red box. That's what that would be. So things like your liver would get pulled up. If we can see the stomach behind here, that's going to get like pulled up a little bit. It's not going to cause this like hiatal hernia, but it's strong enough that it will actually pull stomach acid up. And since all these things are connected in the visceral compartment, it will actually also pull up. I know it's way down here, but it will exert a pull even on the bladder. So all this is connected. And your bladder is constantly trying to sense, what's the volume in here? How much liquid do we have going on? And if you're having this increased negative thoracic pressure here, and it's pulling up on that, it's messing up that signal down there. And it can send you the wrong signal that, oh, the bladder volume is such that we should go pee. That was me impersonating the bladder and what it might sound like in that highly contorted homunculus analogy. So that's what happens when you're breathing poorly at night. It'll get stimulated more and more and more. And over time, this will actually weaken the pelvic floor muscles because, again, it's all connected and this will get weak and that will cause problems. And in fact, that's why people with sleep apnea, in terms of urinary issues, you're about 5 times more likely to have some kind of urinary issue if you have obstructive sleep apnea. And it gets worse with the more severe things are. So that's another big part of the switch that we're going to address, the pelvic floor and how your intrathoracic pressure is. And then number three, the third of the three horsemen here, is an overactive bladder. So we have anti-P hormone, negative intrathoracic, and I know this is indeed the elbow, which is indeed not the bladder. But the reason I put this here is because it's the sympathetic nervous system activation that will then impact the bladder and result in overactive bladder syndrome, which is an actual syndrome here. And as a result, it's just like this. So a normal bladder, oh, there's urine of this amount. Okay, now let's pee. Overactive, as the name would imply, it doesn't take the full amount to stimulate your body to go to the bathroom here. And when we actually look at the relationship between overactive bladder syndrome and sleep apnea severity, it's actually pretty compelling here. So basically, just as you have worsening sleep apnea, as shown by the AHI, this is sleep apnea severity, a number you might get on your sleep study. As this goes up, so does the overactive bladder syndrome score. Okay, this is significant. Yes, I know there's dots all over the place. It's statistically significant, it has a good R value. All of those great things, if you know what that means, awesome. If not, also awesome. So our main goal is to turn off the 3 switches. And for those Jurassic Park fans, this is available for purchase on Amazon, by the way. 3 switches of obstructive sleep apnea so that we're not peeing as much at night. Because when I had sleep apnea, I was peeing like every 60 to 90 minutes at night. It wasn't a whole lot of urine. I actually measured it, and I would do like crazy things like not drink like 8 hours before bed, 10 hours before bed. But I was still having these problems. Now, obviously, flipping the switch off, the ultimate switch is getting rid of sleep apnea and correcting the underlying breathing issue. Yes. Now, chances are you're already doing that from different videos or different video courses, etc. here, where we're getting to slow breathing to keep the airway open. More directly for P, because that's what this episode was all about, is increasing ADH. So the short-term fix, and talk to your doctor about the appropriateness of this. This is just for educational purposes only, and anecdotal evidence as follows. So some of our clients, when we're telling them, hey, salt can actually increase the release of ADH if you time it correctly. Okay. And in doing so, a lot of people have an experience of just having a little bit of salt, like 1/8, 1/16 of a teaspoon. A little goes a long way, and like a tiny bit of water. They do that, and maybe they go from like waking up and peeing 2 to 4 to maybe 1 to 2. Pretty immediate effect. Now, more is not merrier here, or better. Okay, don't go for like a whole bunch of salt. That would be not a great idea. And of course, like I said, I already said, this. Talk to your healthcare provider. The reason this works is quite simply when your body is exposed to higher levels of salt, that tells your brain, oh, we should hold on to water. I don't want to get too salty. So that will prevent the flow of urine, and then you'll hold on to water at night. And ADH is the main thing making that signal happen. So in doing it at night will help it happen at the right time. So we'll also repair that circadian rhythm component as well there. So there you go. Here's some neurons and all that fun stuff. And speaking of fun stuff, I always just put these in the middle. I forget that they're here. Make sure that if you're having a good time learning new things, and if my awful humor is not turning you completely off, then what you can do is subscribe here. Because every time you take your puppy paw and subscribe, well, I guess you only do it once, which makes it easy. Helps you stay up to date with all the information I'm having out here. So when I have a new video come out and a new video, you can always see those, and YouTube will know, oh, hey, you like improving your sleep. So just go ahead and do that so you can get the most out of it. Speaking of getting more out of things, we want to get more out of our pelvic floor muscles here. Now, I didn't think too deeply if it's okay to show a picture of certain things on here. I guess I'll find out. This is educational. This is anatomy, so I guess it's fine. But either way, I'm going to scroll past it a little bit. Pelvic floor muscles. They're muscles in your pelvic floor, and they're important. And what's been found, if you strengthen the pelvic floor muscles, this will lead to a dramatic decrease in nocturia, which is kind of what we're going for here. So this can cut it like in half just by itself. So this is why combining things is a good idea. Now with Kegels, because I'm already someone who will sometimes wiggle my tongue on the internet for views and your personal development, we're not going to get too much into Kegels of going over it. But one thing you can do, pretty much like an awareness exercise. And then in this episode's guide, I'll have more step by step because I don't want to bore you with instructions and make you get the right things down furiously. Next time you go pee, hopefully during the day, if you're not familiar with Kegels, the closest muscular activation is essentially just stopping the flow of urine consciously and then, having it go again, okay, resuming that flow there. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. That's usually the easiest cue for people in learning Kegels and how to like tighten that there. In case you're wondering, Kegel is someone's last name, the guy who invented these things. I'm not saying he didn't discover it. It's just like, how can you say you invented contracting your pelvic floor? But doing these is incredibly helpful. It can be really easy again, like just doing a few in the morning, a few in the evening, and you're good. And again, I'll have specific exercises written out for you step by step later on. Okay, the number 3 is calming down the bladder. So don't pee is actually the name of the game. So again, when you have an overactive bladder, you almost want to ignore it to an extent. And obviously don't like push yourself, but for instance, I can speak to my story of when I would wake up maybe like the first or second time and would have a slight urge to urinate. So most of the time I would just always get up and go. Why not? Taught very well from a young age that you're about to get in the car, you got to go a little bit, go to the bathroom, might as well. Not so much when you're sleeping, especially when you have overactive bladder. So it's a fine line. Something you're gonna learn is that if you have to pee, but you know that if you go pee, it's not gonna be a whole lot of urine. Guess what? Don't respond to that signal as much. And by respond, I mean like don't get up and go to pee. Because over time, your body will become less sensitive to that signal. So you'll go from not having to pee despite feeling a little bit full to not waking up because you're not oversensitive to that signal. So again, it's not something to be extreme about. It's not like push it, push it, push it, and like wake up in a wet bed. Not cool. It's simply knowing like, okay, I really don't have to pee that much despite this urge. Because guess what? For me and many other people, they get up like 1, 2, 3 times a night. They're having like very, very small amounts of urine. So they really didn't have to pee. It was just an overactive bladder from those other reasons that we mentioned there. Now, if you're producing a lot of urine, then, be intelligent in where you're depositing your urine and what you're choosing to suppress, because this behavioral modification is very effective in calming down the bladder. But of course, you just can't ignore something and expect it to go away. Instead, you're just reducing that behavioral loop of just, oh, small sensation, go to the bathroom. So in terms of reducing that, A lot of things you can do. So things you want to avoid: one, caffeine, alcohol, and this is any time of day because overall that'll just make your bladder, your nervous system more active. Number three, artificial sweeteners are another one, and then liquids 2 hours before bed. You may find you have to go 3 hours, perhaps 4 hours. There's not really much of a benefit beyond 4 hours that I've found, but you can always learn how your body responds to this. And then the other component is the double void before bed, which sounds more intimidating, but all it is, go to the bathroom before you go to bed, and then, sit there a little bit longer, see if there's anything else that can come out through that void. Okay. But don't go crazy and straining yourself, right? Now, two other things you could consider here. And so this one, which I won't try to pronounce, we can both not pronounce it together. I'm not even going to try. These herbs can help reduce the urgency and frequency associated with overactive bladder. A lot of people find this effective. And then pumpkin seed oil, which is easier to pronounce, can also help with that there. So just things for you to consider with you in your physician's guidance. Other things to consider, especially because, got the pelvic floor exercises written out here. Now, another consideration for you is the no pee guide here. So that's going over the exercises that I mentioned there. I'll have them listed out. Be pretty easy there and somewhat self-explanatory. I mean, I'll make them as explanatory as possible. And if you want some more help with the breathing itself to really resolve all of this at a deeper level, then you have the sleep apnea reset protocol workshop there for you. So it takes a deep dive into the breathing aspects. You can start to create your own protocol to go from fast, cranky breathing for blocked airways and bad days to slow, steady, happy breathing for happy days. There's my explanation. And you can click the button on screen to find that there. Now, for both of these, you can also get it in the description box just beneath this video. Click that title, it'll pop open, and then click some links there. And there'll be some other fun links there too, so don't miss out on that. And then, of course, there's a button underneath everything, and those are just the 2 doors. I'll tell you the 3rd door in a moment. But first, some URLs here. So it's ochnow.com/no-p. I debated on a different word. I couldn't really think of something. And I try to keep these short, but no P or nope with an extra E. Up to you. But it's there for the taking and has a nice gold shiny toilet on it for you. And you can also scan the QR code. And for the sleep apnea reset protocol workshop, there's that link and there's that QR code. So it's just reset at the very end. Okay, that's there for you. And door number 3 is, well, it isn't to subscribe, but you should if you're here at this point. And then the real thing is to go ahead. Well, if you want to work with us at a deeper level so we can help you out in your journey at a very accelerated rate, go to ochnow.com/next to learn about that information or scan that QR code there. Either way, if you want the other ones, you can rewind. You want this one. So as we wrap up, I'm Dylan Pekas. That's the last pun. And that's the end of this episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.